Hello, my tea drinkers. How are you this Thursday? Yes, we made it to another Thursday. Can you believe it? I'm telling you, I'm going to be honest with you. I woke up with a little bit of anxiety this morning. I have admitted it. It's okay. We're going through something we've never seen before. I hate saying everything is unprecedented, but sometimes you got to acknowledge that everything isn't okay because it's not okay. But it's okay when you come and sip some tea with me, with the Tea with April, every Thursday at 5 p.m. Mm. I'm drinking mullein, dandelion, I think, and nettle today. I need something to calm me down. There's so much going on, and we're going to get to all of that. We've got a great show today. We've got great guests, and I'm telling you, this week you want to stay tuned. I can't say who the names are. I don't want to name drop, but you got to stay tuned. And for all of you watching on Instagram, you need to shift over to Substack, subscribe, come on over. It's better to watch on Substack. But I welcome all of you. Thank you for joining. I am so excited today for the show. But first, let's go to our trending topics. Guess who is going to be in the hot seat on February 11th in the House Judiciary Committee? I am going to be tuned in with my popcorn. None other than the Department of Justice head, Pam Bondi. Yes, you heard me. She goes before the House Judiciary Committee. She's not done it since she's been in office. Now she's expected to get peppered with questions on issues of who is ICE, who makes up ICE. We already know some of the Proud Boys in there, but let's see if she acknowledges that. Also, let's talk about the vetting, the training, 47 days. We're going to talk about, they're going to talk about a lot of things, and we're going to listen to what she has to say. And we were talking about this earlier in our meeting. The thought is that because Pam Bondi has not been in the hot seat over in the House Judiciary Committee since she became the head of DOJ, we're thinking that there are going to be some other things to include the Epstein files and everything else. But right now, February 11th, she's going to be expected to deal with the agenda item of ICE. Okay. And so put that on your calendar, watch, basically pull out your popcorn and sit there and watch. If you're at work, quietly look at it on your phone. But nonetheless, this is going to happen February 11th. And also, why are so many FBI agents quitting in the department? That's another question that we're hearing that she might be asked. So Pam Bondi is going to be on the hot seat February 11th on Capitol Hill. Now, also on Capitol Hill, there is a plan that has been pulled together by Senate Minority Leader as well as House Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. They are trying to deal with DHS in this spending, this over excessive amount of spending request. And guess what? The department, ICE is already, DHS is already funded to 2029 through the big, beautiful bill. That's what it's called, but you guys call it the big, ugly bill or whatever you call it. But guess what? They're going to talk about the issues of profiling. They don't want that. They want to cut that out. They want to make sure they don't wear those gaiters that harken back to slavery and the KKK. I'm going to say it. And then also the issue of tear gassing, excessive force, all of that. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But it also could be a problem. It could hold up. If they don't get this resolved, this could actually hold up uh, the budget process. It could also create another government shutdown. So we're going to stay tuned for that. Let's give them some big, big props on this because this is one of the key issues. Ground zero is Minnesota. We are watching a revolution on the people, even though they have the Tom Homan has said that the ICE czar said that he's drawing down the members of ICE agents by 700. There are already 2,300 there, right? 2,300 ICE agents there. St. Paul has 600 police officers. Minneapolis has 600. But you have 2,300 ICE. That's overdue. That's overreach. It's overdone. So this is what, is on the docket for I guess this next couple of weeks, we're dealing with Ice Baby. I'm not talking about Vanilla Ice either. We're dealing with the issues of ice and the complications that they have created, the deadly complications that they've created in this nation. And then let's go to another issue, another migrant issue. TPS, 250,000 to 300,000 Haitians have been asked to voluntarily deport themselves because TPS has expired. Now, let me tell you how important this is. There is this crazy marriage in this nation of migrant labor and the economy that has worked out for years. And now all of a sudden, Donald Trump wants to play this game. He wants to stop the browning of America. That's what it is. It is about the browning of America. Now, I talked to Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, Congresswoman in Florida, and she said, listen to this example. She said in some of the urban areas, some of the Black areas particularly, there are Haitians, a lot of Haitians. She said about 60% of the assisted living facilities and nursing facilities are uh, manned by Haitian migrants who get their certificates. So now the TPS is expired, they cannot get recertifications, they have to leave. So at the end of the day, what do we do when we lose healthcare providers? What do we do when we lose healthcare providers and the economy is impacted by this? This is not well thought out. This is all about the browning of America. Think about that. And I want to go to someone who we had on just a few weeks ago. Her name is Nana Jumphy. She is an advocate for Haitian migrants, and she had this to say. Take a look.
So with Haitian TPS, 300,000 people, Haitians on TPS, temporary protective status. Of course, this administration has ended their temporary protective status, as well as the temporary protective status of Sudan, Somalia, and others. You know, April, that Baji has been a supporter of temporary protective status, but a pusher for permanent status. And
Yes.
so there was a press conference that happened today that Baji was fortunate, along with others, to be a part of. And what we are pushing for is not looking to the White House. I know some people do that, and that's okay, but it's like that's like dear President Trump is like saying dear Hitler or dear Andrew Jackson and the rest. We're
Mm,
really looking at Congress, and we're saying, if you remember, April, the Liberians got a program. There were Liberians that were on temporary program, and they got a pathway to citizenship. One of the only people that got a pathway, but because there were Black people, no one but Black people cared about it. Well, we're
mm,
saying that Haitians should get the same thing. An
mm,
actual program, like the Liberian program, it was called LRIF, the Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness. Haitians should get a program like that that gives them a pathway to citizenship, and we're making that call. Our
mm,
people, our siblings, they are supposed to be here. That is what's fair, given the condition of their country, given the U.S. involvement in the condition of that country, and given the fact that they are part of this country. And to now try to tell them that they are going to be undocumented and deportable by the body snatchers is absolutely ridiculous. So we're
Congresswoman.
supportive of Representative Presley and what she's putting forward, along with Representative Kelly, and we're also saying that Congress, we need LRIF for Haitians.
I'm going to tell you this. We keep talking to a lot of these congressional leaders and relying on all these people when it comes to migration. We need to rely on ourselves, right? We are not, again, I keep saying this. We are not a country, we're not all a country of Native Americans. We are a country of natives, migrants, and slaves. We are a country of natives, migrants, and slaves. And Donald Trump has got a lot of nerve wanting to stop, uh, wanting to end the temporary protection status for Haitians. On both sides of his family, they're migrants. So, has anybody reminded him of that? And his wife is one too, with her documentary that didn't do so well. Who said it was? Somebody said it had the numbers of Star Wars in their dreams. Oh my gosh. We need Darth Vader on that one. But anyway, may the force be with you. Um, I'm just over the moon with this. So let's go to the chat before we get to the next piece. Kelly says, "Love you, April. Keep being iconic. Thank you. I can only be myself, which is real. Baltimore real." Iris, call your senators. They track the calls, keep the pressure up, and hold their feet to the fire. That's what I'm saying. But as we talk about being ready to get out there and do the work. I mean, this is a generational thing. We think that, okay, we're okay after we get these laws. We're not. We see how laws can change. And my thing is that there are efforts for people to bring in new blood to work this thing out. And have you seen lately that Kamala Harris has now changed her book tour? She's changed her book tour to to registering and bringing in the new crop of people. Are you that new crop? She's trying to bring in the next generation of leaders. I've seen Barack Obama do that too. But the question is it really effective? Will Kamala Harris be effective? Are we tired? Are we over it? Are we complacent? Are we ready to fight? I know contrarians, you guys are out here. You come with me every Thursday and you're ready to fight and you talk. And I just want to know where you stand. Tell us where you stand with this. You know, College campuses, are you ready? Churches, are you ready? Community centers, are you ready? Just the community overall, are you ready to make this change and what it takes? So I see somebody who's ready to make some change. They are sipping some tea. Come on, sip some tea. Let's bring her in. She's an attorney, she's an author, she's a candidate for the California State Senate.
Mm.
Mm. None other than Christine Pelosi. You know that last name. You know that her mama happens to be the popper, the collar popper, walking out with those glasses and that collar, popping the collar out of the White House a couple of years ago. Nancy Pelosi is something. This is her daughter, Christine, her baby girl. Hey. Hi,
Hello,
Christine. How you
friend.
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I am ready. I have all
Are
my
you ready?
ladies here. I'm sipping tea with all of my ladies from the inauguration. Everybody, you know. Of
Who's
course,
on
we got
that? Who's
Mama
on
here. We
that?
got Jill. We got Kamala. We have all sorts of friends. Michelle. We have all sorts of ladies
I love that.
inspiring me
Oh, yes, Michelle
on the
Obama and that
daily.
beautiful Sergio
Remember
Hudson.
that?
Yes. So let me ask
Yes.
you this. Are you ready to be the next generation? I mean, you come from a political family. And I talk about Nancy Pelosi being from Baltimore. Y'all don't know. Y'all call San Francisco her home. But before that, her family is like the first family of Baltimore. Her daddy and her brother were mayor of Baltimore, the D'Alessandros. Okay. So this is in the blood. So it went from the daddy to the brother to Nancy. And now Christine. Christine, are you ready to take on the mantle?
I am ready, and I'm so excited to do so. In California, we have 40 million people. As a senator, I represent 1 million people. So I am getting ready to apply my public service representing San Francisco as a city attorney and a prosecutor in the domestic violence unit. I've represented my party at the national committee. I've helped pass some laws, including some I'm running under right now on campaign finance
Mhm.
and on code of conduct, fighting sexual harassment and the way that we treat one another and comport ourselves. And I'm really excited to get out there and fight for health, safety, and power because, if there's one thing I've learned from Nancy Pelosi, who is, yes, 50 years San Francisco, but Baltimore
Come
through
on, I was getting ready to
and
say, yes,
through.
Baltimore proud.
Yes, yes, Baltimore proud. We are Baltimore always. Is that you have to always connect with the people and be in the community and understand that the people are your bosses. So I'm ready to have a million bosses and represent them in Sacramento and frankly backfill a lot of what's happened to my state in terms of money for healthcare, money for housing, public education, public transport, and good paying union jobs that have been cut off by this spiteful individual who still feels that he really and truly won California, if only we didn't count everybody.
So wait a minute, you talking about winning California. We still trying to figure out with these now unsecure ballots that have been taken out of Fulton County 2020, what's going on in 20? You're talking, so is there a situation where you are now there about the ballots?
Well, here's the way I see it, April, and you and I have talked about this quite often. This man refuses to believe that he lost,
Hmm.
but he did. So when it comes to, well, let's do Fulton County for a minute. When it comes to Fulton County, Georgia, we were sending California phone bankers into Georgia in 2020. Now, Nancy Pelosi had already invested $12 million in Georgia to help the House Democrats and help the infrastructure
Hmm.
before we got to the situation where we had Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff ready to
Yes.
be senator. You have to win from the ground up, and Stacey Abrams and others were a big part of that and those contributions. So we, for a while, had Georgia on our minds, right?
Yeah.
So by the time we got to the election of those two senators, we already knew with the phone banking we were doing into Georgia and with the work that we were doing, we were already facing at the doors people saying, oh, this is socialism, this is communism, and particularly going after the Venezuelan Americans and saying, see, the Democrats are part of this. So my personal theory on this is, number one, Donald Trump can't believe he lost. He would like to take every ballot and recount them himself, but he can't.
I can't
But
believe
I think
he's
they
still on
seized
that. I
Georgia
Yeah.
because he wants to find a way to pardon Maduro. He wants to find a way for Maduro to admit election fraud in 2020 so he can justify taking over the financial resources of Venezuela. It's always the money. Yes, it's the racism. Yes, it's the xenophobia. Yes, it's the pulling up the ladder behind him. But ultimately, with Donald Trump, it is follow the money.
It's
And
fine.
that's why Tulsi was there. That's my theory.
I still have a problem that Tulsi Gabbard went to Fulton County. Your mom pops the collar,
Yes.
and you're popping the collar with truth as well. But let's be real clear. Donald Trump is playing a game that we've never seen before. I liken it to gangsterism in New York. And our hearts and prayers were with your family when that attack happened because of all the gaslighting and things that happened. What I don't understand, people are still not talking about that. That was hard for us, and I know it was hard for you. But how do you still feel like you want to put your put some scuff your rubber on your shoes in the game, put some skin in the game when all of this happened to your family?
Well, first of all, for my dad is doing much better, and we
Amen.
appreciate the prayers. The prayers really help, especially when the antagonism is coming, both in terms of uh, the antagonism that led to the targeting and the attack, but also in the aftermath of the attack. We knew who our friends were and who they were not. Actually, the first person I heard from was actually our friend Don Lemon,
Mm.
wishing us well and hoping everything was okay. Was I was waiting go into the emergency room because we already knew that people had leaked the story if we were finding out from Don before I'd even awakened my children to tell them. So we
Really?
knew that there were people who were not spreading the news because they said, "Oh, isn't it so sad about Paul Pelosi?" They were already on continuing, an attack. So we know more than most about the politics of personal destruction, but also why it means you still have to get in there and fight peacefully for what you believe in. It didn't break our family. It didn't break us that they came after us. Of course, we're more somber and serious about it. Of course, we take care, especially for our kids and our family. And having spent the last 3 years in court, um, because of my prosecutor background, engaging with the lawyers who were prosecuting the case, both in the state and in the federal court, and now going through the appellate process, I can tell you, and I've seen much more evidence than anyone has because it's under protective seal. I
Yeah.
can tell you it is the of course, the responsibility lies with the defendant alone. However, the buildup, the constant loop of violence and negativity and the death threats that keep
Come
coming
on.
and keep being encouraged, anybody would say, why are we doing this? On the other hand, there are people every day who feel, our immigrants feel, they are under attack at any moment. They could be swept up. There are people who are trying to work in solidarity with them who feel they could be swept up. There was a young teenage girl last Friday who was killed in the crossfire of an innocent girl caught in the crossfire of a gunfight. So we still have violence that hits every home and that hits everyday members of the community. So I would say I stand up for them. I know how they feel. I know what it's like when your family is being attacked. I know what it's like when your home is a crime scene. I know what it's like when you're being belittled by the system rather than supported. I know what it's like when the defendant has more rights than the victims do. I know those things. And I think that that's why safety is such an important part of my platform and what I want to do. But also, it's my way of saying, look, we're all in this together. We all have to make each other feel safe. And the prayers and the support and the resources that we can give each other in these really challenging, tough times, I think incredibly important. So if, I would say, if anything, the fact that our family's been targeted and victimized, if anything, that
Yeah.
makes me a stronger advocate for protecting all families from having to go through something like this, either because of a political motive or any kind of motive.
So I know Nancy Pelosi as the political firehouse, okay? She talked about it's not a glass ceiling, it's a marble ceiling. It's hard to chip away at the marble. But she's also a mama bear. She loves her children and those grandbabies.
Mhm.
What was the conversation that you had with your mama, okay? Your Baltimore-born mama who went to San Francisco. What did she what did she say to you in the midst of this? And please be honest, because I can't, as a mother myself, if I already know that the family has gone through, I would say, look, I respect it, but be careful, or maybe not. What did she say to you?
You mean when I started running, or you mean at the time 3 years ago when we were
No,
at the
when you
beginning?
started running.
Well, we talked about it. It's funny. We hadn't really talked about it much, about me running much, because I was always like, you are the member of Congress. You will run as long as you want to run. And after you make your decision, then we'll talk about mine, because I didn't want her to make her choice based on anything other than how she felt and her conversations with my father. And so after she made, and when she was making her announcement video, I said, look, well, just film two endings, right? One if you run, one if you don't run, and then play the one you want. And that way nobody can leak your story for you, right? Because the last thing you want is to make this big announcement one way or another and have someone who heard something from a production assistant say, oh, I think I know what's going on, right? So she made her beautiful announcement. And then after that, I started talking to her about what I would do. And I said, I really feel that California, for me, having been raised in the California Democratic Party, I chaired our platform for a dozen years. I ran our women's caucus for 10 years. I passed laws in California. It's a closer commute for me, 2 hours door to door to be home with my daughter, who's a junior in high school. And I felt like that. And I also felt, frankly, like it was safer for me not to be running, safer for my family, not to be running for national office where every day was a vote yes or no on something Trump had to do with, versus running for office in California
Wow.
where, yeah, we have to backfill his damage, and we will, with creative solutions that people need. But essentially she said, look, this is a decision that is, you have to do what's best for your family. You have to do best for your service and what makes sense for you. And that is what I wanted to do. And then she said, okay, now you got to get in the race. I said, no, mom, you need to get your flowers. And she said, no, I'm going to have my flowers. I said, well, at least have a weekend, to enjoy yourself. And then I'm going to go Monday morning right before Veterans Day. um, and really to go just to tell people this is my vision to be a fighter for California and to help the communities I've always worked with as a women's rights attorney. But her thing was basically, you have to do what's right for your family,
Yeah.
and you have to do something that's a total commitment to these million bosses. So that's where I landed.
So Christine, MLR says that grit is all Baltimore. Deb says follow the money is probably what Epstein is all about as well. Kay Bacon says, what a great mug. Yeah, where did you get that mug?
Oh, this was they were selling this after the Biden Harris inauguration.
Okay.
So I don't know. You might find it on eBay or something, but I got this around the time of the graduation. You can tell because they're all wearing masks. See, they're wearing
Yeah.
their mask because it was the
And we're still,
party.
and I'm back wearing my mask.
Well,
Okay.
whatever it takes. Well, I want to say one thing on Epstein though, because when I did a lot of work in the Me Too movement for politics. My client, Adama Iwu, wrote a letter saying we had enough. We said enough when it comes to harassment in California politics. And a number of people in California politics signed that letter. They reached out to me to sign it because at the time I chaired the Women's Caucus and I had had enough publicly of other individual men who were found to be harassers. And we said we can't be the party of women if we're going to continue to nominate people after these credible charges come out against them. Mm-hmm. And then some people got fired for signing the letter. Oh. And then we had to build up a coalition around them. We thought we would say enough, that we would demand the truth, and people would say, you know what, we should change our behavior. And they would change it. We didn't realize how hard it would be to get them to get to the bare minimum. But because I'd done that work, some people reached out to me representing people who had been trafficked by Epstein. And they said, can you help us? And I was trying to get them to come forward and testify because it wasn't just Epstein, it was his whole network, as we're now finding out. And I worked with a couple of survivors in particular who are now, one's now public, one is not. And just to try to facilitate them being willing to testify. And then, of course, he died before they could. And so I just want to say one thing. These files are as bad as we thought they would be, but the administration hasn't released all of them. They did fail to redact the names of victims. But let's just keep in mind, every time you send around, not you personally, April, but people send around pictures of Epstein and Maxwell, you're sending around pictures of abusers, and the victims see that. So when we're talking about this, remember, this is really raw for them. It's coming back and they're reliving the trauma. And the best thing that we can do for them is not only insist on the truth, but insist on the truth for everyone who's been trafficked. Don't let the horrors of what Epstein did forget the fact that this is an administration led by an adjudicated sexual predator himself, who is cutting millions of dollars of resources for survivors of sexual assault.
Millions of dollars of resources are cut. Oh my God. You were popping the collar like your mama and putting on the shades. Christine Pelosi, yes, that's Nancy's daughter. Yes, she's running for state senate in California. Christine, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sipping.
My pleasure. Yes.
You gotta come back. You gotta come back. She's by way of Baltimore through her granddaddy, her uncle who were mayor, and her mama who was born in Baltimore in Little Italy. Don't forget that. And now they're in San Francisco. Thank you, Christine Pelosi. I appreciate you, my sister.
Thank you so much. PelosiForSenate.com. Come visit
me. All right.
Guys,
you heard it from Christine Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's daughter. She is running for state senate. And I'm so glad that she came in and taught us. I didn't know all this about the Me Too and Epstein files. I just want this Epstein thing to be seriously dealt with. We cannot have all this redaction and all of this hiding. People are hurting. And we're going to talk about that later in the show. But I'm telling you, I'm happy for Christine Pelosi, jumping in. She's jumping in on the state level, understanding that she is needed and she has a voice, and I'm glad for that. Now, guys, I'm going back to the chat. Susan says, "Giving up is unforgivable. Join your local indivisible and listen to April and the Contrarians." Thank you. Thank you for sipping tea with me. Thank you. I love it. I love it when you sip tea with me. So here's what I'm going to say right now. I did an interview this week with someone who is amazing, and she's been in the news, and she is someone that we are lifting her name up. Her name is standing next to Don Lemon, as Christine mentioned his name, Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. Georgia Fort is a three-time Emmy-winning journalist who is an independent journalist who was the only reporter in the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And now she is fighting for her career and fighting to support the First Amendment and basically let the world know that she is not an activist. She was a journalist chronicling what happened a few Sundays ago in City's Church in St. Paul. She gave some information in an interview that we did recently that I'd never heard before. Guys, you got to watch this. Team, roll the tape. Welcome to this very special edition of The Tea. I am honored and pleased to bring this to you. This, for me, is important. It's an important conversation. It's the First Amendment, freedom of the press. And with me in this moment is none other than independent journalist from Minnesota, Georgia Fort, Emmy Award, three-time Emmy Award winning Georgia Fort, who, if I'm correct, was the only journalist in the court during the Derek Chauvin trial. And now Georgia Fort is in the news because she covered an action from an activist group going into a church looking for what the activist group believed was a pastor who was involved in some kind of way with ICE. But she was chronicling this event from what we have from the reports. But I want to get all of this from Georgia herself. Georgia, welcome.
Thank you so much, April, for having me.
Um, Thank you for joining us today for the tea. What happened? What can you tell us from that Sunday, and then leading up to today, what you're dealing with today?
Well, I think the backstory, a lot of people have not heard about me as an independent journalist who's from Minnesota and who's based here. I had been running nonstop since the fatal shooting of Renee Good. So I think
Mm,
that had been 11 days, right? The day that the church protest happened was day 11 of me and my itty bitty small team working 12 to 16-hour days with no days
mhm.
off. And so I was actually extremely exhausted
Yeah.
that morning, kind of debated on whether to go out or not. But the reason why I continued to show up and showed up that day specifically, we talk about this a lot in journalism, right? Like the credibility of your sources.
Yes.
And so the person who was leading this action, she is a civil rights attorney. She
Hmm.
is a doctor. She is a reverend. She has done so many things here in our community, and she is the definition of a credible and trustworthy source. And so I felt like it was important to, from a local perspective, show the world outside of the protests that were happening at the Federal Whipple building, outside of the protests that were happening at the hotels where ICE people were staying and at the memorials, that there were these other actions that were happening. I showed up solely in my capacity to document as a journalist, and all of everything that I captured that day is published.
And what was the name of the activist that was arrested? Because who was your source? Because she was the first round of arrests in this.
That's right. Yep. She's civil rights attorney, Dr. Nikema Levy Armstrong.
Yes. And she was one of two that were arrested. She was the first round. And then we heard that the judge refused to charge you and Don twice. Two judges refused, well, two court proceedings where they refused to charge you. And then the federal charges came through a grand jury, a sealed grand jury document. And then what happened Friday shocked the world. Your video, you were so spot on by videotaping. I think right now in this moment, video is so important because the narrative that others, particularly from this White House, that comes to us is something totally different than what we see. We saw from your video, your Ring camera, through your, and also through your house, people dressed in, and thank you for sipping the tea, people dressed in DEA flak jackets, Drug Enforcement Agency,
It's
DEA,
humiliating.
came to your
Humiliating.
house in your
Yep.
cul-de-sac
Yep.
to arrest you, and you had the video. Tell me why you felt it was important to document. Because we're glad that you did, but tell me why it was important that you document this, and why did you?
Well, I'm a storyteller. It's in my nature, but more importantly, I had spent the week prior to being arrested seeing Don Lemon be brutalized in the media. I saw them attacking him, and I knew that I was also there that day, but people weren't attacking me because they don't know me. I just don't have the name recognition. I've never worked at
Well, you do
CNN,
now. You do
you know.
now.
And so for me, it was just important that I be able to tell my own story, that people know that I too am a journalist, that I've been doing this for more than 17 years. I have worked really hard to produce my own independent news program for television. It was nominated for 12 regional Emmys and we won three. That I've been doing this work for a long time, that this isn't something that I just woke up and started doing, that I've been serving my community. People forget journalism is a public service. And
Yes.
I'm proud to be a public servant, right? And so I just wanted people to know that. And I think the best way to tell stories is with the photos and the videos of what actually happened. And so, as my mom was demanding to see the warrant and checking with the attorney to make sure it was legitimate, I did a quick live. I updated the public what was going on. And I sent the videos to as many people as I could quickly to let people know this is happening, this is real, and it's attack on our First Amendment.
And just so everyone is clear, you had never worked with Don Lemon before. You don't even know Don Lemon, and you
No,
haven't.
I was on his show one time shortly before.
Okay.
And then, he was like, hey, I'm going to come to Minnesota. I had no idea, how long he was going to be here or anything. And I was looking forward to meeting him. I think independent journalism looks great on him. I've, been following his independent coverage and was really excited for the opportunity to be able to connect. And then all this happened. So definitely not how I had imagined getting acquainted, but
Yeah.
here we are.
So, Georgia, I'm going to be real honest with you. And I'm an independent journalist now too. I questioned myself. I said, would I have gone into that church with the activists to chronicle? Some parts of me said I would, and then other parts of me said, I don't know. Do you feel like that was the best thing to do to chronicle still in the midst of all of this?
Well, the thing I think people have been tearing Don Lemon apart about, that he was 100% being honest about, is like, we didn't know. And I think this is why it's so significant that I am local and that I'm from this community. This wasn't
And
the
trusting
first.
and relying on your source.
Right. And so you if you go back, so and maybe people have heard this term, that this specific action was called Operation Pull Up.
Yes.
Operation Pull Up ain't new. They was pulling up in George Floyd. They was pulling up after Dante Wright. And so to actually understand what this action was, you needed to be here as this movement in Minnesota has progressed. Minnesota is ground zero. right? How did the officers for George Floyd get charged? If you remember, it wasn't because the county attorney woke up and said that he wanted to charge them. It wasn't because the governor said he want. There was public pressure, and it's not because the third precinct was set on fire either. It's because you had grassroots organizers who were showing up, pulling up at the doorstep of the people who are in power. And so, if you look back, I remember one of the first Operation Pull-ups I heard of was at the home of the president of the police union. There was
Mhm.
another Operation Pull-up that happened after Dante Wright that was at the home of the current then county attorney who was overseeing the case against Kimberly Potter, and he refused to bring forth charges. So they pulled up to his house and they protested, and they did that for several weeks. And in fact, there was times he actually came out and he talked to the organizers and talked to the protesters. I was one of the only journalists who was there documenting this. And so, to be honest with you, April, I had paced back and forth all morning for this Operation Pull Up because it was below zero. And I'm like, we're going to be out in front of somebody's house. Let me get 5 layers of clothes on. It's going to be cold. I'm borrowing people's coats and sweaters because
Oh my God.
I'm thinking Operation Pull Up is going to be outside protesting at someone's house. And
Hmm.
so Don Lemon has said this everywhere that we did not know. You can go and you can look at the flyer of
Hmm.
the protest that day. It said meet at Cub Foods, right? And so you
Mm.
meet at one location. And the reason why they do this is because they don't want to publicize, and historically it's been at people's houses, right? So they don't want to put someone's home address on the internet. They don't want people that
Right.
are not, there to protest peacefully to show up and start, inciting things or doing property damage. Every time I've gone out and cover actions by this organizer, it's always been peaceful. It's always been very like strategic at the doorstep of a decision maker, and so that's what I was expecting going into this. And so they had a different action plan. They're organizers, but we didn't know. We're not a part of the planning of these things. We showed up at Cub Foods and followed the caravan to their location.
The
And
location, City's Church in St. Paul.
yeah, yeah. And so at that point, you do have to make a decision. I was there in my capacity as a journalist. I documented as a journalist, and the footage is published. It speaks for itself. And so I think, we're at a time where we have to really start to ask ourselves, right? If you have members of the community, civil rights attorney, a school board member, a candidate for Senate, a former candidate of the Green Party, leaders in our community who are saying, we are observing the ACLU just filed a class action lawsuit because there's been so many US citizens unlawfully and unconstitutionally arrested by ICE. We're seeing the due process violated. So many immigration attorneys are coming forward and saying, my clients aren't getting due process. We just saw a judge issue a letter that cited more than 100 cases where due process has been violated. And then in Minnesota, 3 shootings in less than 3 weeks, and 2 of them fatal. I do feel as a journalist, it should be documented. And we're facing federal charges now simply just for documenting what has happened in this community. And to me, I believe journalism is not a crime. I don't think that
It's not a crime.
yeah.
Our founding fathers, our founding fathers, before the internet, before independent journalism, before there was media, when there were town criers and some newspapers, they put in place something called the First Amendment, freedom of the press. It is that extra layer when the checks and balances don't balance out between the three branches of government. And that's where we are right now. There's that fourth layer, the fourth estate, that adds as an accountability piece. And that's, as a journalist, I'm sorry, I stand with you in the First Amendment. As a journalist, I mean, I've been targeted, but this is not just a target for journalism. This is something to set a precedent And also, you are caught in the dislike of Don Lemon with the President of the United States. There's a rift that the president has with Don Lemon. You are caught in that. But what you said is that Operation Pull Up has done this before, and it's not been like this. So this was an elevated action from listening to what you said by Operation Pull Up that you've covered, correct?
Yeah, it definitely was different. It was different than previous actions.
Mm. So you and Don were two of a number of people who were arrested and been charged federally. Others were activists and lawmakers.
There's a candidate for Senate. There is a former Green Party candidate, a school board member, a civil rights attorney, and then there were several other people who were there that were not charged. And most of those people were elderly white folk.
The way I understand it, City's Church is a very it's a religious group, but they're very extreme in their beliefs, extreme right in their beliefs, if I'm correct. Am I correct with that?
You know, I'm not familiar with the church. This is the first time I ever heard of the church.
Okay.
You know,
What do you want people to know as we start wrapping up this interview that I'm very thankful for? What do you want people to know about you and this situation?
I'm a journalist,
Mm,
and I think that an attack on journalism is an attack on truth itself. People in our field oftentimes personally may not agree with what they're doing. They may agree or they may not agree. Like I've
right.
had to give people the example through this. I'm like, you do know that there are war photographers and
Mhm.
journalists who have to go cover war. And so you think that they agree with what they're covering, you know, because I think there has been this erosion of the understanding of what journalism is, and
Mhm.
that if you're documenting, you're participating, or if you're documenting, you're agreeing. And I'm not saying that to say I agree or disagree. I'm offering it because I think that we have to understand the nuance and the
Yeah.
complexity of our profession. And if we just say that, you know, documenting is participating, um, it removes the protection that we have
Yeah.
to find the truth. It's dangerous
Yes.
when you're investigating and you're trying
Yes.
to uncover the truth, you know. And I think that was one of the questions that I had is like, are people like, why are people so mad about this? And some of it I feel like is the unmasking of an agent. This demonstration unmasked the head agent here in Minnesota who holds a lot of power. And so I want people to know that I'm a journalist, that I have fearlessly through my whole career pursued the truth. The
Yes.
name of my show was Here's the Truth when we were doing our TV show.
Mhm.
And that we are currently in an information war. And
Yes.
so, April, even in my pursuit of the truth, to show people what's truly happening here in Minnesota, right? That I can be not just ridiculed and criticized and condemned publicly, but now they're trying to criminalize me. And so, are we going to allow the attack on the truth, the attack on press, to escalate this information war where we no longer have access to real facts, that real facts are now up for debate? When you think about the White House publishing an AI altered image of Nakima, darkening her skin, making it appear as though she's
Yes.
crying hysterically. And we're saying that that type of information sharing is acceptable, but going out in controversial moments where people are demanding justice, documenting the truth of what's happening, that is a criminal act. I think what we're approaching on some very dangerous times for whether or not our public has a desire to know what the facts are or if they want to be disillusioned. Do you want misinformation? You prefer your information to be altered?
Mhm.
And so, and if you do believe in preserving facts, integrity, truth, justice, I think that Americans are going to have to stand up and defend the press. We are your
Yes,
last lifeline for the truth. And
that part.
so, it's not my place or my role to debate the details. It's not my place
Mhm.
or my role to agree or disagree, right? Those Nikema Levy Armstrong, Chantel Allen, the other people who have been charged, they can speak to the why. They can defend, the reason that they felt that this was necessary. That's not my job. My job was to document what happened, and we wouldn't even be sitting here having this conversation if it wasn't documented, right?
That's right.
We wouldn't be able to debate anything. And if you compare and contrast the mainstream narrative of the details of how this all went down, our documentation, it actually can dispute a lot of the claims that are being made. Like you go watch
Exactly.
the footage, a lot of the things that they're saying, you're not going to see in the footage. And so it
Exactly.
is important to have a document, just like with George Floyd. The first press release that came out about George Floyd said that he died of a medical complication. And that was written by the Minneapolis Police Department, a city funded agency, right? So, had it not been for the documentation of
Of
Darnella
somebody
Frazier,
on the phone,
do you
somebody
think
on the phone.
did she agree with what she was filming? Well, it wasn't her role to agree or disagree. It was to document, to have a
Right,
record of
right.
the facts of what
That's right.
happened. And she did. And it was shared to the world, and it held up in court. The same thing can be true with Renee Good and Alex Preddy. There were people there
Right.
who bravely, courageously picked up their phone and they filmed what happened. And now there is an account, there is a record. And so I think we get to a really dangerous time if we start to try and criminalize the
Exactly.
people who are documenting the facts so that there is a record of the truth of what is happening in our community.
Georgia, you're absolutely right. We're treading on some very fragile ground. And one thing you said with the White House and how they did an AI composite of Nikema, that was terrible. That was terrible. What you're supposed to get facts from the White House. The White House is supposed to be a place that is balanced and for everyone. It's clearly changed, okay?
It's supposed to be the most prestigious institution in our nation.
But not just prestigious. Anything that comes, the words, the actions out of the White House can change.
Integrity.
Yes, it can change
Yes.
everything. Perception. It can even change markets around the world. The stock market here. And we are now vilifying a black woman, changing her look because you want that to be. Not the fact that the law says it, but because you want it to be. Two, and I'm speaking from experience, being a black person, reporting while black. See, your problem, in my eyes, and understanding what this administration has done in the past, how dare you report on a situation that involves that the crux is about minorities, about migrants who may look like you or be closely in kinship with you. That's one, because they believe that you're already skewed. That's in their mind, that you cannot fairly report on a story in your community, which you did. So, hats off to you
Thank
for
you.
being an exceptional three-time Emmy award-winning journalist who is out there doing her work. And as I wonder, and I've questioned myself, would I have gone into that church? I stand with you and Don and the First Amendment, freedom of the press, freedom of the press. This is an unprecedented moment in the nation's history. Yes, the press has been challenged by presidents before about leaks, etc. The information that we get that's so sensitive. But this is a moment of covering something. They're trying to also layer these journalists with the terms activists, and that carries a whole nother level of prosecution. They went in there to chronicle. They did not bust in that church. So, Georgia, I just want to say to you, thank you for joining me. And this was an information session, but I had to publicly say to you that I stand with you. I stand
Thank
with
you.
you and Don. I know Don very well. And through this process, I've gotten to learn who you are and what you are. And I appreciate your commitment to journalism and still
Thank you.
fighting the fight. And I'm here anytime you need. And I'm sure many of the contrarians that watch will be there for you. How do we support you in this moment?
Thank you for asking. I've just been asking people to continue to support my journalism by going to
Mhm,
my website, georgiafort.com. There's
mhm,
a page there to support.
mhm.
It is important to me that this doesn't silence me,
Yeah,
that I am able to continue going out in the community and sharing what's happening. And so if people want to support that way, I want to continue doing the work. I'm from here. This is my community, and
mhm.
we are still ground zero. There is still a huge push here in Minnesota for accountability, and I want to continue to document that journey from both the standpoint of community voices, but also our elected officials as well.
Paraphrasing Gil Scott Heron. They don't want the revolution to be televised, but it shall be televised. Georgia Fort, thank you so much. And thank you. You are today's shero, tomorrow's shero. You go
Thank
down
you.
in the history books, my sister. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for watching the tea. What we were just watching was the footage that Georgia Fort chronicled in that church, City's Church, as the protesters uh, made themselves known. That was Georgia Fort, three-time Emmy Award-winning journalist who is now the face of the fight for the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of the press. Like I said, as a journalist, as a contrarian, we will televise the revolution. Don't get it twisted. I want to go to our chat really fast because we got to finish out this show so you can get to cooking dinner and eating dinner and sipping some more tea. Ann says, it's the hypocrisy that messes me up. ICE can invade churches, schools, homeless shelters, and etc. And MAGA doesn't complain. Two journalists chronicle the protest at the ICE pastor's church. They're arrested. MLK says the regime is lawless! Exclamation point. Barbara says this is so important. Documenting is different from participating. That part. Mark says, I saw the entire thing. It was the most amazing reporting I have ever seen. It brought intense pride. Y'all keep going, please. Exclamation, exclamation. Freddie says, this is a fabulous interview. Thank you so much, Freddie. Omar, welcome back, Omar. There's a part of America that wants to live in fantasy, escapism, and mythology, unfortunately. Catherine says the facts are dangerous to fascists, so they seek to intimidate the truth tellers. That part. That part. Guys, this has just been a moment in history that I just can't it's just dumbfounding to me. I wish we had more collar poppers like Nancy Pelosi. I wish we had more people engaged. You know, the court of public opinion makes a difference because you are speaking out and protesting. Look at what happened in Minnesota. And now, they're drawing down 700 ICE agents. But there's still other issues like the Epstein files. I want to give a big prop to my sister in journalism, Caitlin Collins, when she asked the president about the Epstein files in the Oval Office. Take a look.
It's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
But what would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten
healthcare,
justice, Mr. President?
Something that people care about. Yeah, what did you say? Go ahead.
What would you say to the survivors who feel like they haven't gotten justice?
You are the worst reporter. No wonder CNN has no ratings because of people like you. You know, she's a young woman. I don't think I've ever seen you smile. I've known you for 10 years. I don't think I've ever seen a smile on your face.
Well, I'm asking you about survivors of Jeffrey Epstein,
You know why you're not
Mr. President?
smiling? Because you know you're not telling the truth. And you're a very dishonest organization.
Those words, those kind of words, are exactly the reason why the media is broken up now. That word fake and all that other stuff has changed the dynamic of the media industry that we used to have 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. It's nothing like when Walter Cronkite said, "That's the way it was." If you don't know, look it up and Google it. Now, when it comes to the Epstein files, this piece came out in September, a couple of months back, from none other than Ted Cruz. And you wonder, I mean, think about this. You've got a large swath of Republicans who stood with Donald Trump when he was campaigning, said, yes, we're going to go into Epstein files. And then you got another group that's like, hey, we don't care. Look at what Ted Cruz said.
And tragically, this pattern keeps on happening. Now, Senator Booker also said we should have bipartisan agreement. I think that's a great idea. We should have bipartisan agreement. How about we all come together and say, let's stop murders? How about we all come together and say, let's stop rapes? How about we all come together and say, let's stop attacking pedophiles?
I'm done. I'm so done. I'm done. Okay. So with that said, I'm just leaving it there so you can let that marinate in your soul. Moving on. I want to also, as I think of my journalists, we just celebrated Caitlin Collins. I want to send my condolences to job condolences to all of my colleagues at the Washington Post. Job condolences. They lost their jobs. 300 people at the Washington Post. And guess what? This now, with this latest firing of people at what used to be the juggernaut of news, the Washington Post, the newsroom has now been cut down where 90% of the staff is just white, right? No texture, no flavor, no color. You know, it takes all of us to make the news the way it should be for everyone to read. So I send my sympathies, my heartfelt sorrows to my journalism friends. And think about this. The reason why the Contrarian is here, we had a Washington Post columnist who is now editor-in-chief here at the Contrarian leave the Washington Post to come here because news started changing. She wanted to give the facts and give you something that she saw was shifting. She wanted to go back to what it used to be. I'm talking about none other than Jen Rubin. Thank you, Jen Rubin, for your foresight, and Norm Eisen for doing this. But 300 people got laid off and fired from the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos, shame on you. I want to go to a friend of mine, Jonathan Capehart. Jonathan Capehart, who used to work at the Washington Post, said something very poignant on social media today. Take a look.
Truth be told, I saw this horrible day for the Washington Post coming. A day when a third of its staff was let go and its standing as a pillar of American journalism was annihilated. There was so much hope when Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post from the revered Graham family in 2013. I was at his first town hall after his $250 million purchase. You could feel the relief from the nervous journalists in the room when Bezos promised to give the paper the resources it needed to rebuild. And he kept his promise. just in time for the paper to be running at full speed while covering Donald Trump's first presidency. But over the ensuing years, things happened. The paper lost money. Will Lewis, the new publisher with legal issues hanging over his head, hired by Bezos, promptly antagonized the newsroom. The owner killed a presidential endorsement. Then Trump got elected again. The owner sacked the opinion editor and replaced him with a vassal who would go along with the personal liberties and free markets ethos Bezos wanted the section to adopt. The buyout offers to everyone in the section came, me included. So, after 18 years as an opinion writer and associate editor at the paper Katharine Graham and Ben Bradley turned into a journalistic juggernaut, I took the money and never looked back. The slogan adopted by Bezos' Washington Post in Trump's first term was, "Democracy dies in darkness." Given what Bezos and Lewis did today, amid the insanity of a second Trump presidency, the Washington Post will be complicit in killing it.
Democracy dies in darkness. I think about, again, Republican John McCain, when he was alive, he championed free press, independent press, saying once you start co-opting and changing it, etc., there becomes a dictatorship. We are now seeing the death of traditional journalism. But over here at the Contrarian, we're good. You got to subscribe. You got to subscribe. And before I leave you, I want to send my heart to someone I sat next to in the briefing room, in the White House briefing room for a long time, Savannah Guthrie. She was my seatmate. We sat right next to each other when I was in the fourth row years ago. I can't imagine the pain that she's going through right now, hoping that her mother is found. Guys, I hope you extend good thoughts and prayers and wishes to Savannah and her family like I am. I could not imagine that. Savannah, we pray with you. We're thinking of you, and not only just Savannah, but for all who are out there who are missing loved ones and concerned. We pray for you as well. But with that said, we have concluded another edition of the Tea with April. Don't forget to subscribe. All you IG watchers, come on over here to Substack. Don't be afraid. We got you. Sip some tea. Have a good day. Good night.